In the silent vastness of the cryo-chamber, the soft mechanical hum echoed as the biological system was activated. A heavy breath broke the stillness, and Nyla Sothra's eyes flickered open, blinking against the faint white light. The first sensation that flooded her mind was paralysis. Her body seemed unresponsive, her muscles encased in an invisible layer of ice. She blinked again, struggling to focus on the space around her. The room was cold and empty, with metallic walls that gleamed like polished silver. The ceiling emitted a weak glow from greenish strips of light, creating an unfamiliar and mysterious atmosphere. As her eyes adjusted to the light, a figure appeared before her. A tall, slender creature with shimmering skin and large, piercing golden eyes stared at her intently. It was a Therian. Their shape resembled a perfectly sculpted statue, but behind that elegant exterior lay an aura of coldness and detachment. Incredible, the creature's voice echoed, but not from its mouth. The words pierced straight into Nyla's mind, sending a shiver down her spine. The last one. The final memory of a species. Nyla struggled to move, but her muscles remained stiff. Where am I? She whispered, her voice hoarse, not sounding like her own. On the research vessel Caldharis, the Therian replied. We found you drifting among the remnants of the old Earth. We thought you were dead, but it turns out you're still intact. The words remnants and old Earth struck Nyla like daggers to the heart. Fragmented memories rushed back, blinding flashes of light, echoes of screams, the disorienting feeling of entering the cryo-chamber. But that was the last thing she remembered. How long have I been asleep? She asked, her voice trembling. 503 years, by your planet's time, the Therian answered. Your species is no more. You are the final piece. Those words shattered everything for Nyla. The loneliness consumed her, like a black hole swallowing all hope. But fear quickly gave way to suspicion. Who were these creatures? Why did they care about her? So, what do you want from me? Nyla gritted her teeth, trying to keep her voice steady. The Therian didn't respond immediately. A door behind it opened, and two more creatures entered, carrying a large, glowing cylindrical device. They placed the device in front of Nyla, and one of them gestured. We need to understand you, your species, the Therian said. You are the most valuable artifact in the history of the universe. What you know, what you remember, we need it all. Artifact. Nyla repeated, her voice growing sharp. I'm not some specimen in your museum. The Therian tilted its head, an expression of both curiosity and arrogance. You have no choice, it said. You belong to us now. Anger surged within Nyla, causing her body to tremble involuntarily. She could now move her limbs, though they were still weak. She tried to sit up, but the two Therians standing nearby immediately stepped forward, their eyes glowing as if preparing to overpower her. Touch me, and I swear you'll regret it, Nyla hissed. A moment of silence filled the room. The lead Therian extended a hand, signaling the others to stop. It looked at Nyla, its large eyes seemingly flickering with amusement. You still have the spirit to fight, it said, its voice as if appraising a rare artifact. Very interesting. Perhaps we'll learn more from you than we expected. But Nyla didn't care about its words. In her mind, a plan began to form. She didn't know where she was in the universe, or how to deal with these creatures. But one thing was certain, she wouldn't let herself become a pawn in their game. She glanced around the room, trying to memorize every detail: the devices, the doors, even the strange light coming from the cylindrical device in front of her. In that moment of desperation, a spark of hope flickered. If she could understand their technology, maybe she could find a way to escape this place. Nyla clenched her fists, her eyes burning with determination. She hadn't survived 500 years of cryosleep just to become an artifact. She was Nyla Sothra, and she would find a way to reclaim her freedom, no matter what the cost. The faint blue light in the prison cell seemed to stretch time into eternity. With every passing second, Nyla Sothra felt the weight of pressure bearing down on her consciousness. She couldn't allow herself to be defeated. Her existence here couldn't just be as an artifact. But how could she escape the control of these strange creatures? Nyla began to pay attention to the smallest details, the way the Therians moved, their interactions with each other, and even the times they checked the devices in the room. She realized that they didn't use conventional communication methods but instead relied on a neural signal transmission system. This both intrigued and unsettled her. What would happen if they invaded her mind? One night, or at least what she assumed was night by the way time felt, Nyla feigned exhaustion, lying motionless on the cold metal bed. One of the Therians entered, its glowing eyes scanning her body. Seeing no signs of abnormality, it turned and left. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Nyla sat up abruptly, moving cautiously toward a small control panel near the door. She recognized that this device was the key to accessing the ship's network. The problem was, she didn't know how to activate it. But she wasn't going to sit idly. She recalled the technical lessons she had learned as a child and began to look for a pattern in the unfamiliar interface. After a few moments of fumbling, a series of strange characters appeared on the screen, accompanied by a soft clicking sound. She touched the brightest icon on the interface, hoping it was the way to access the system. A stream of data quickly passed through, and Nyla had to force herself not to let confusion overwhelm her. The first thing she searched for was information about Earth. The first image that appeared took her breath away. Earth, the planet once vibrant with the blues of the oceans and the browns of the land, was now just a lifeless rock. The surface was covered in massive cracks, as if the planet had been torn apart by an unimaginable force. Fragments of it floated in orbit, forming a chaotic debris field. Omega Project, recording of the collapse, the heading on the screen read. Nyla tapped on it, and a video clip began to play. The footage from a spaceship showed Earth trembling. A powerful beam of light, almost piercing through the universe, erupted from the planet's surface. The sound in the video was distorted, but she could clearly hear a frantic voice. "It's not our fault. It's a quantum phenomenon, uncontrollable." Nyla recoiled, her mind filled with confusion. A quantum phenomenon? What had happened? She continued to search and, eventually, she uncovered the terrifying truth. Humanity, in its efforts to protect the planet from cosmic threats, had developed a groundbreaking quantum technology. This technology was called the Nexus Quantum Core, a device capable of generating energy to stabilize the fluctuations of spatial dimensions. But this greatness had led to disaster. A report from Therian scientists revealed that the Nexus Quantum Core did not function as expected. Instead of protecting, it caused a spatial anomaly, drawing the entire Earth into an antimatter energy stream. Nyla felt her heart constrict. Had humanity destroyed itself? But something didn't add up. She kept reading through more reports and realized an even more horrifying truth. The Therians had known about the instability of the Nexus Quantum Core. They had data showing that this technology could cause a universal collapse effect, but they never warned humanity. Why? The answer lay in an encrypted portion of data that she couldn't access. In the following days, Nyla gradually realized that the destruction of Earth wasn't just an accident. There was a force, something larger than the Therians, pulling the strings. The reports hinted at a shadow entity, an unknown form of life existing beyond the familiar realms of space, something even the Therians feared. But before she could dig any deeper, the door to the cell swung open. A group of Therians entered, their eyes gleaming with cold light. "What have you done?" The voice echoed directly into her mind, filled with rage. They had discovered her intrusion. Nyla didn't panic. She stood tall, her gaze defiant. "I'm just seeking the truth. The truth that you're hiding." The lead Therian of the group looked at her coldly. "You have no idea what you're facing, human." But Nyla knew she couldn't turn back now. What she had just uncovered wasn't only the truth about humanity's demise, but also a part of a much larger secret tied to the fate of the entire universe. And she was determined to follow it to the end, no matter what the cost. Nyla stood in the darkness of her cell, the faint blue light from the control panel casting an eerie glow on her face. After breaching the Therian ship's information network, she delved deeper into understanding the Nexus quantum core, the technology that had once been humanity's pride. The Therian data storage system was not easy to comprehend, filled with technical terms and complex descriptions, but Nyla slowly pieced together the events. The Nexus quantum core wasn't just a simple power supply. It was an invention far beyond the understanding of most civilizations, a super quantum bridge capable of manipulating the very fabric of space-time. This technology was designed to stabilize dying star systems, redistribute energy between planets in a solar system, and even prevent supernovae before they occurred. It was a leap forward beyond any scientific achievement humanity had ever made. Nyla scrolled through the simulations in the database. The image of the Nexus quantum core appeared before her, a glowing sphere, radiant like a tiny star, surrounded by floating metal rings that moved so quickly they were barely visible. According to the reports, its energy was nearly limitless, and just a fraction of its power could revive a dying planet. But as hope flickered in Nyla's mind, other reports began to shift the picture. This technology had not been welcomed. Other civilizations in the universe misunderstood it as the ultimate weapon. One document showed that when the Nexus quantum core was first activated, its quantum signal spread across millions of light years, alerting powerful civilizations, including the Therians. An interspecies council convened in haste to decide humanity's fate. The document was filled with phrases like potential threat, risk of universal destruction. The council, influenced by powerful members like the Therians, reached the conclusion, humanity must be eliminated. Nyla could hardly believe her eyes. Not only had humanity created a revolutionary technology, but now they had to pay the price for an alien misunderstanding. But why had the Therians chosen to conceal this truth? She continued her search, following the encrypted fragments. After hours of effort, she unlocked a document hidden deep within the system. This document revealed an even greater secret: the Therians didn't just misunderstand the Nexus quantum core. They were truly afraid of its potential. A special report written by a senior Therian scientist revealed that the Nexus quantum core didn't only have the ability to rebalance energy, it could also create quantum rifts, portals leading to other dimensions. Humanity's early experiments on Earth had inadvertently opened a small tier, leading to an unexplored space where outside reality entities existed. These entities, called eclipse entities in the Therian documents, were unlike any life forms known in the universe. They had no fixed shape, were not bound by time or space, and their power far exceeded anything understood. The Therian scientist confirmed that if these entities passed through the quantum doorway, they would annihilate everything in their path. The Therians dared not take the risk. Instead of helping humanity control the Nexus quantum core, they stood behind the decision to eliminate humanity. Nyla felt rage flooding her heart. The Therians had not only stolen humanity's chance at survival but had also concealed the existence of the Eclipse entities from other civilizations. She stepped back from the control panel, trying to breathe deeply to calm herself. But in her mind, an idea slowly began to form. If the Therians feared the power of the Nexus quantum core, perhaps that was the key she needed to turn the tide. Nyla knew she couldn't face the entire Therian race and the secrets they held alone. But she also knew that if she could harness the power of this technology, she could not only save humanity's legacy but also have a chance to fight against the threat of the Eclipse entities if they truly existed. Outside the window, the stars shimmered, a reminder that the universe still awaited her exploration. But now, she knew that to reclaim her freedom, she had to confront darkness deeper than anything she had ever imagined. Nyla stood in the main control room of the Eris Prime, her cold gaze locked directly on Taron Velar, the leader of the Therian people. His guards lined up behind him, their weapons gleaming, ready to intervene at the slightest sign of trouble. But Nyla was unafraid. She hadn't come here for negotiation, she had come to expose the truth not with guns, but with logic and a firm belief in the righteousness of her cause. Taron Velar, tall and imposing, stepped forward, his eyes filled with challenge. The last survivor of a destroyed civilization, he said, his tone laced with mockery. Do you think you can change anything here? Nyla clenched her fists, but her voice remained calm and sharp. I'm not here to change anything. I'm here to show you the truth that you and your race have deliberately ignored. Humanity is not your enemy. We didn't create the Nexus quantum core to destroy, it was made to protect. And you've sentenced us without understanding its true purpose. The room fell silent for a moment. Taron studied Nyla, his eyes flickering with suspicion but also calculation. We don't need to understand your purpose. The Nexus quantum core emits energy that can tear reality apart. That's reason enough to eliminate any potential threat before it develops. Threat. Nyla took a step forward, her eyes narrowing. You're not eliminating a threat. You're eliminating an opportunity. You know better than anyone that the energy of the Nexus could be the only hope to protect this entire galaxy. And if I'm not mistaken, even the Therians are facing a catastrophe that you're too afraid to acknowledge. Her words hit like a dagger, striking deep into Taron's defense. He turned to look at his guards, signaling them to leave the room. As the door closed behind them, the atmosphere grew heavier. Catastrophe? Taron asked, his voice lowered. What do you know about that? Enough to know that you're not entirely our enemy. Nyla didn't miss the chance. I found reports about entities from the dark regions of space, creatures you call Eclipse entities. They are the real threat, and I know why you fear the Nexus quantum core. It's not just a source of energy. It's the only weapon that can protect us from them. Taron fell silent for a long while. His gaze no longer held mockery or challenge, but a serious consideration. You're right, he finally admitted. The Eclipse entities are moving through star systems, annihilating any life they encounter. We've lost 3 colony planets in the last month. And we have no way to stop them. Then why destroy humanity? Nyla asked, her voice tinged with anger. We were close to a solution. The Nexus quantum core could be the key to dealing with this threat. Taron turned away, his shoulders tense. We're afraid you won't be able to control that power. We've seen too many civilizations destroy themselves because of their own ambition. But we haven't destroyed ourselves, Nyla emphasized. You've made sure we never got the chance to prove that. Her words struck a chord with Taron. He turned back to face her, his expression softer, his eyes showing a hint of vulnerability. What do you want? He asked, his voice no longer cold. I want a chance, Nyla replied. We need to cooperate. The Therians have the technology and the resources, and I have the knowledge and the determination to complete what humanity started. We can't face the Eclipse entities alone. But together, we might have a chance. Taron considered her words carefully. He understood that Nyla was right. The Eclipse entities were a threat that the Therians couldn't deal with on their own. But cooperating with a representative of a race once deemed dangerous was unprecedented in their history. What can you offer? He asked, his voice probing. The Nexus quantum core is more than just an energy source, Nyla explained. It's the key to creating a quantum energy field strong enough to push the Eclipse entities back, or at least slow their advance. But to do that, I need access to the Therian scientific database, and I need support from your scientists. Taron pondered for a long moment. You're making a big bet, Nyla Sothra. But I can't deny that we are desperate. It's not just the Therians who are desperate, Nyla said, her eyes firm. The entire galaxy is desperate. And sometimes, reluctant allies are the only hope we have. Taron sighed. He knew that this wasn't just his decision, it was a decision for the future of his entire people. But he also knew that refusing this offer would mean signing the death sentence for the Therians as well. All right, he said, meeting Nyla's gaze. We'll cooperate. But if you betray us, I'll be the one to end you first. Nyla nodded, feeling a sense of relief but also resolve. She knew that this was just the first step in a larger war, one that would require all the resilience and intelligence she had. But now, at least, she was no longer alone. And that was the beginning of a new hope. The conference was held in the command center of the Eris Prime, a massive room filled with holographic screens displaying three-dimensional models of star systems ravaged by the Eclipse entities. The air was tense, like a taut string, as Therian scientists and commanders stood across from Nyla. This was the first time a human representative, even the last human, had been allowed to stand before the entire leadership of an alien civilization. Nyla held a small device in her hand, a metal cylinder glowing with a faint blue light. It was the quantum bridge, the heart of the Nexus quantum core technology. She placed it on the control table in front of Taron Velar and the Therian scientists, her voice clear and firm. This is not just technology, she said. It is the last hope for both of our races. The Nexus quantum core can create an energy field large enough to slow the progress of the Eclipse entities, even push them back if we optimize it correctly. But to do that, I need your help. A Therian scientist in a silver cloak, Dr. Sarthi, frowned as he examined the device. We've analyzed this technology from the ruins we found on Earth, he said. And we don't see it offering anything more than an unstable energy source, one that could destroy everything around it. That's because you don't understand its true purpose, Nyla countered. Humanity didn't create the Nexus to destroy, it was made to balance. The quantum energy field it generates can restructure space, a natural and sustainable process. But this technology was never fully realized. That's why I need your knowledge. Taron Velar stood silent, his gaze never leaving Nyla. He knew her words carried weight, but he also understood that cooperating with her would cause internal strife among the Therians. Still, the images of devastation on the screens around them reminded him that time was not on their side. We need to ensure that there's no risk when activating the Nexus quantum core, Taron said, his tone cold but no longer hostile. If it spirals out of control, we'll face not just the eclipse entities, but the full force of its power. Nyla nodded. I understand. But we have no other choice. If we don't act, both our races will be wiped out. I'm willing to risk my life to prove that this technology can save us. Her words left the room in silence. Taron turned to Dr. Sarthi and the other scientists. Prepare the lab. I want to test the Nexus quantum core under strict supervision. In the weeks that followed, the Therian laboratory became a joint workspace for both species. Nyla, alongside Dr. Sarthi and his team, worked tirelessly to optimize the Nexus quantum core. Each time they hit a roadblock, Nyla relentlessly inspired and persuaded the Therian team with her unwavering determination. Every failure is a step closer to success, she told Dr. Sarthi when they had to reboot the system after a failed experiment. Humanity has learned to rise from failure, and that's why I believe we can do this. Dr. Sarthi, once a skeptic, gradually came to respect Nyla. He realized she wasn't just bringing technology, she was bringing an indomitable spirit, something the Therians had lacked in their fight against the Eclipse entities. One day, Taron Velar entered the laboratory while Nyla was overseeing an important experiment. The three-dimensional space models displayed the operation of the Nexus quantum core. The energy field was expanding, creating a stable protective zone on the screen. This is the first time we've created such a stable energy field, Nyla said, her eyes glued to the screen. If we scale it up to the galactic level, we can create a shield against the Eclipse entities. Taron studied the data and graphs, his eyes filled with astonishment. You've done it, he said, his voice low. But this is just the first step. We need to deploy it on a larger scale and quickly. Exactly, Nyla nodded. But to do that, we need unity not just between me and you, but between our two civilizations. The Therians and humans must work together to build and protect this future. Taron was silent for a long moment. He knew Nyla's words were not just a statement but a monumental challenge. But he also realized that she had proven her worth through her determination and trust. We'll do our part, he said, his gaze resolute. But if you betray us, there won't be a second chance. I don't need a second chance, Nyla replied, her eyes alight. Because I won't let any of us fail. And that was how a ray of hope began to shine through the chaotic darkness of the galaxy, as humans and Therians, two once warring races, joined forces for survival. The Eris Prime drifted in the vast emptiness of space, surrounded only by the deepest, endless darkness. At the heart of this void, the destructive entity known to the Therians as the Eclipse entity existed as an endless vortex of negative energy. It was not just a life form or a natural phenomenon, it was the embodiment of chaos, destruction, and indifference. It consumed all light and energy in its path, turning once bright planets into cold ashes. Nyla stood beside Taron Velar in the control room, her hand resting on a glowing control panel. The Nexus quantum core, the heart of quantum technology, was emitting a powerful, yet dangerous energy field. This energy field was not meant for destruction but for communication. The destructive entity was not a typical enemy, it was something neither humanity nor the Therians had ever truly understood. We might still be too late, Taron said, his voice deep but clear. His sharp eyes, usually composed, now showed signs of worry. We have no other choice, Nyla replied. The Eclipse entity cannot be destroyed by conventional force. If it truly is a form of consciousness, we must make it understand that its existence is destroying everything around it. The Eclipse entity began to move. Dark energy beams spread outward like invisible arms, reaching to touch the Eris Prime. Alarms blared throughout the ship, and the screens displayed a dramatic spike in energy pressure. Some systems began to overload. Taron issued orders, activate auxiliary shields. We need more time. Nyla focused entirely on the task. She knew the Nexus quantum core had been programmed to send out a peaceful quantum signal, but this process required absolute precision. Any mistake could cause the energy field to collapse and lead to immediate destruction. When the quantum signal was activated, a wave of blue energy emanated from the ship, rippling out into the surrounding space. It was not like a weapon. There were no explosions, no destructive force, but a melody, a sound that couldn't be heard but could be felt, like an invitation. The dark arms of the Eclipse entity faltered. The ship's sensors showed a slight decrease in the intensity of the negative energy. But just as everyone began to breathe a sigh of relief, the destructive entity sent out a pulse of energy even stronger than before, causing the ship to lurch violently. "We've reached its consciousness," Nyla said, trying to keep her balance amid the tremors. "But it doesn't trust us. We need to do more." "What do you mean?" Taron asked, his eyes glued to the chaotic readings on the screen. Nyla turned to him, her gaze unwavering. "I need to go outside. I'll bring the Nexus quantum core directly into the heart of the Eclipse entity." "That's insane," Taron protested. "You won't survive. The energy field of the entity will destroy your body the moment you enter it." "We have no other choice," she responded. "We bet everything on activating the signal. If I don't complete it, everything ends, not just for me, but for both humans and their Therians." Nyla stepped into a small shuttle, the Nexus quantum core attached to a transmission device. Taron watched her through the viewport, his eyes full of conflict. She knew he didn't believe in her chances of survival, but she also knew he couldn't stop her. The shuttle left the Eris Prime, heading toward the heart of the Eclipse entity. From the cockpit, Nyla could feel the immense pressure of the surrounding energy field. It felt like an invisible weight pressing down on her body, forcing her to brace against it. As the shuttle got closer, strange images began to appear in her mind, memories that weren't hers, fragments of a story she couldn't understand. She realized that the Eclipse entity was not just a mindless being, but a collective memory of civilizations that had been destroyed. It was the pain, the anger, and the fear of billions of life forms that had vanished into the darkness. When she reached the center of the entity, Nyla activated the Nexus quantum core. The device sent out one final wave of energy, stronger than anything she had ever witnessed. But this time, it wasn't just emitting a signal. It created a connection, a bridge between Nyla's consciousness and the destructive entity. She felt its pain, its fear of being forgotten, and an intense desire to survive. But she also understood that its existence could not continue if it kept destroying everything around it. "You are not alone," she whispered, unsure if the entity could hear. "You don't have to destroy to exist. There is another way." The entity seemed to cease its movement. The dark energy beams retracted, and for a moment, everything became still. The quantum energy field began to stabilize, and the blue light from the Nexus quantum core spread, enveloping the entire entity. On the Eris Prime, the screens displayed an incredible change. The Eclipse entity began to break apart, not in an explosion, but in a transformation. It became pure energy fragments, merging with the surrounding space, no longer carrying the destructive force. Taron stood silent in the control room, staring at the screen. He couldn't believe Nyla's plan had succeeded. But when he checked the signal from the shuttle, he realized Nyla hadn't returned. "We've won," he whispered, but couldn't suppress the pain of losing the one who had made this miracle possible. The remnants of the destructive entity slowly dissolved into the vast, endless expanse of space, leaving behind a peaceful region of the universe marked by the haunting events that had just transpired. The Eris Prime still hovered among the stars, carrying the survivors from both humanity and the Therian people who had endured the chaos. Taron Velar stood on the observation deck, his eyes fixed on the place where the heart of the Eclipse entity had once been. No more threats remained, only the sparkling light of pure energy fragments scattered across the universe like remnants of an ancient star. He knew that Nyla had sacrificed everything to create this moment. A profound silence enveloped them, yet it was full of meaning, as if the universe itself had taken a moment to remember her. However, the story did not end with Nyla's sacrifice. Both the Therian and human survivors aboard the Eris Prime understood that their survival depended not only on defeating a common enemy but also on how they would redefine their future. In the days that followed, a provisional council was formed, made up of both Therians and humans. Taron Velar, having relinquished his position as the supreme leader of the Therians, became one of the leaders of the council. He no longer bore the cold, distant demeanor he once had. The events of the past had changed him forever. "We can't go back to how things were," Taron said during a large meeting between the two species. "We can't continue to be adversaries. What Nyla left us with is not just salvation, but an opportunity to build a new world, a world where we can coexist and grow together." The Therians, who had always prided themselves on their advanced technology, began sharing their scientific knowledge with humanity. In return, humanity offered creativity, flexibility, and a spirit of unity, things the Therians had once seen as weaknesses but now recognized as invaluable strengths. New cities were being built on once abandoned planets. Research stations, energy plants, and interspecies educational centers rose up as symbols of a new beginning. However, not everything was easy. The scars of the past still lingered, and trust could not be built overnight. Some factions of the Therian people saw cooperation with humans as a retreat, while some humans still could not forgive the Therians for their role in the misunderstanding that led to Earth's destruction. One of the greatest symbols of change was the establishment of the Nyla Nexus Station, a space station built at the site that had once been the heart of the Eclipse entity. This station was not only a research center but also a memorial to those who had sacrificed their lives in the war. Taron, in a speech at the inauguration, said, "Nyla didn't just save us from destruction. She showed us that courage and compassion can bridge even the vastest distances between the stars. She created a connection not only between our species, but between the ideals of hope and reality. This connection is her legacy, and it is our responsibility to uphold it." The following years saw remarkable progress. Humanity's quantum technology, combined with the Therian scientific precision, led to major leaps in space exploration. New planets were explored, safe space corridors were established, and a new interplanetary alliance began to take shape. But more importantly, the awareness of cooperation and shared responsibility took root. Therian and human children studied together in mixed classrooms. Multi-species research teams worked side by side to solve the lingering problems from the Age of Chaos. Stories of Nyla were passed down as a source of inspiration, not only for humans but also for the Therians. One day, as Taron stood in the control room of the Nyla Nexus Station, he felt a strange sensation as if Nyla were still present, in every breath of this space station. He gazed out the window, where the light from the energy fragments of the Eclipse entity still shimmered like small torches, guiding the way to the future. "We've done it," he whispered, as if speaking to himself, but also as if speaking to an invisible spirit he knew was watching over them. "You've created a new world, Nyla. And we will not let it fall.